Summary versus analysis. In your college classes, you'll be required to write analytical essays. Especially if you transfer to a UC or CSU or other four-year university, you'll be expected to have mastered this concept in your writing classes. However, what many university freshmen and transfer students discover is that they've only been summarizing all along and have a poor grasp on analytical writing. And some of these students realize this really late in the game and have to scramble to figure it out, since many university professors won't take the time to catch them up on what they should already know. So what should you know? First, summary isn't a bad thing. It's a good skill to have, a skill we work on in our pre-transfer English classes at the community college. It's possible you worked on summarizing in high school. You do need to know how to describe, explain, and restate texts, but you also need to know how to go beyond a summary and offer a more complex analysis. You might use summary in an essay to provide background, set the stage, or illustrate supporting evidence, but it needs to be very brief, no more than a few sentences. Most of your paper should focus on your argument. Sometimes summarizing what you already know about your topic is a good pre-writing strategy to get your thoughts in order, but the essay itself needs to move beyond that and argue or analyze. Many writers rely on summary because it's easy and familiar. Repeating the plot is easier than figuring out what the symbols mean or making an argument about what you think is the theme of a literary work. You can use these criteria to test whether your essay is focusing on summary or analysis. It's a summary if I'm stating something that would be obvious to a reader or viewer, if my essay moves through the plot, history, or author's argument in chronological order or the same order the author used, or if I'm simply describing what happens, where it happens, or whom it happens to. It's an analysis if I'm making an original argument about the text, if I've arranged my evidence around my own points instead of following the author's or plot's order, or if I'm explaining why or how an aspect of the text is significant. Warning signs. This essay is about. This book is the story of. This author writes about. This movie is set in. Don't use these phrases. They're a red flag for summary. Analysis is often used in courses where students are required to analyze literary works, such as English 1B at the Peralta colleges. However, analysis is also required in English 5, critical thinking in reading and writing, and is applied to argumentative texts. What both have in common is that your subject is something someone else wrote, not an unrelated idea, story, or issue of your own creation. Because you rely on this work of literature or article for evidence, it becomes easy to turn a summary of the work into the focus of your paper, but that's a pitfall you need to avoid. In a literature class, you're most likely to look at a work of fiction and determine what the theme is and support that by analyzing literary elements such as characterization and symbolism. In a critical thinking or argumentation class, you're most likely to critique someone else's argument and determine whether it has been made effectively or not by analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of the rhetorical strategies used. Note that neither essay requires you to say whether you like the piece of literature or whether you agree with the argument. You're just analyzing what's there and using a variety of criteria to illuminate the meaning or determine what's effective. To write more analytically, take notes as you read the work to jot down major themes or ideas or things that intrigue you, or to mark strengths or weaknesses of an argument. Sometimes it will take a second reading or more to see things you didn't see the first time around. The St. Martin's Handbook recommends these steps for analyzing a text. First, identify evidence that supports or illustrates the main point or theme as well as anything that seems to contradict it. Second, consider the relationship between the words and the visuals in the work. Are they well integrated or are they sometimes at odds with one another? What functions do the visuals serve? To capture attention? To provide more detailed information or illustration? To appeal to readers' emotions? Third, decide whether the sources used are trustworthy. Fourth, identify the work's underlying assumptions about the subject as well as any biases it reveals. After you write a draft, read through what you've written and ask yourself, what's my point, or what am I arguing in this paper? If the answers aren't clear or you can't answer these questions, you probably haven't gone beyond summarizing. Also, if you're just reporting someone else's ideas, you probably aren't analyzing. The University of North Carolina Writing Center shares 6 strategies to avoid excessive summary. First, read the assignment, the prompt, as soon as you get it. Make sure to reread it before you start writing and go back to your assignment often while you write. Second, formulate an argument including a good thesis and be sure that your final draft is structured around it, including aspects of the plot, story, history, background, etc., only as evidence for your argument. Third, read critically. Imagine having a dialogue with the work you're discussing. What parts do you agree or disagree with? What questions do you have? Does it remind you of other works you've seen? Fourth, make sure you have clear topic sentences that make arguments in support of your thesis statement. Fifth, use 2 different highlighters to mark your paper. With one color, highlight areas of summary or description. With the other, highlight areas of analysis. For many college papers, it's a good idea to have lots of analysis and minimal summary or description. Sixth, ask yourself what part of the essay would be obvious to a reader or viewer of the work being discussed. What parts, words, sentences, paragraphs of the essay could be deleted without loss? In most cases, your paper should focus on points that are essential and that will be interesting to people who've already read or seen the work you're writing about. Hopefully this presentation was informative and useful as you write analysis papers for your transfer level classes. Follow the link for another great handout about summary versus analysis.
Created using Powtoon.